life in three, two, go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to another Money Monday on the Daily Huddle. Got some similar or familiar faces, and we've got some new ones on here today. And I don't know who's watching us out there in live streaming world, but we have some great information to bring to you this morning. But in our true fashion, we'd like to start with a little bit of a joke. It's definitely a Monday morning joke. In honor of Cyber Monday. I got this from Kimberly on text earlier today. So it's her humor this time, not mine. But what did the duck say after he went shopping? Put it on my bill.
There you go. Cheesy Monday. Good morning, everybody. My name's Kimberly, and this is obviously my husband, Zack, and we are your hosts for today on Money Monday, and want to welcome you with the show. Our question of the day today is, what obstacles are preventing home ownership? And it's a big passion of ours, and also our guest, Gina, who we'll introduce to you guys in just a second. So want to definitely have you guys think about that and start thinking about it and really listen to our conversation today, because I think it's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. So let's start out with our questions for you guys, just to get our minds in the right place. Let's see, who to pick on. I'll go right back to Kimberly and ask her, what time is it and what are you grateful for today?
Oh, Zach. The time is now. The time is always now, right? Zach has the now clock. So if you ever want to know what time it is absolutely now. And I am grateful that all of our girls were home for Thanksgiving. We have 4. So they were all in town from all over at least the East Coast, I guess. And we had a few minutes to spend with them and enjoying that time. So that's what I'm grateful for today.
All right. All right, let's go with Andrea. Where are you and who will you hug today?
I am where I need to be, which is here with you guys. And I am going to hug my parents that are still here with me. So that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. That's the best thing about Thanksgiving and holidays is everybody's around for a little bit longer.
It's a good thing. And lastly, let's see. Molly popped in there at the end. I'll just see if I can put her on the spot and say, how are you today?
I am how I say I am, and that is excellent.
Outstanding. That's right. We are how we say we are. Awesome. Well, I'm excited this morning. I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly and Gina. This is their area of expertise, and they've spent some time working together over the last several years. So I'm excited to hear what they're going to talk about today, and make sure you've got some pen and paper if you write your questions down. So when we get to Q&A, this is a wealth of information that you're going to have access to today. So Kimberly, you go for it.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, I want to introduce you to my friend Gina Lemelin. She is an amazing expert in the field of real estate and mortgages and finance, and just understanding, the trends that we see going forward, some of the obstacles that we see in home ownership, and she's a great example to talk to us today. I'm going to read you guys her bio just a little bit before we get started. So she has over 25 years in the mortgage industry, and she's an experienced instructor with 10 years of writing, promoting, teaching, and helping real estate agents, CPAs, and financial planners on how to grow their business. Gina's constantly researching the real estate market and as a result has a deep understanding of market trends. Each class she teaches is designed to ensure the student walks away with the knowledge and skills set to thrive in the current marketplace. So with that being said, our question of today is what obstacles are preventing homeownership? So Gina, welcome to our show. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us here today and let's chat.
Well, thank you for having me. As you said, I'm working hard to promote homeownership, but been more focused now on preservation of homeownership as well. They go hand in hand.
So tell me what you see out in the economy right now as far as some obstacles to homeownership. What do you see going on right now?
Well, it's varied. There's a couple things going on. First, you have your second largest generation, which are your baby boomers, and they are aging out of their homes. But as aging people, they are not doing the upkeep on their house. They don't have a lot of the, modern features in the home. They don't really care to, and they're not going to, in general, sell their home to investors, which is a good thing. This generation doesn't love investors. They want to sell on the standard market, but not do the improvements, which is the second thing coming in. You've got the largest generation entering the homeownership arena. That is your millennial. And they don't always know how. So there's almost like a vision gap. The millennial has a hard time understanding what that home can be without seeing it already in its best form. And you don't have a lot of vision casting or even ideas on what can be done as far as renovation, lending, and all of these things. No one's really talking about them. So that's number one. Number two, we have a lot of investors entering our market, buying. We have foreign investors. We have investors from other states. We have a lot of focus on rental right now. And then you have higher rent prices as a whole. So you've got a lot of homeownership being inched out because while these renters are able to build the muscle strength for making the higher payment, they're not able to save up for down payment. And the down payment assistance that's out there is it's really marginal. It's not very helpful to the consumer. It's confusing. It doesn't work with the market or the inventory that we have right now. So cash to close is a big one that we talk about. So there's a very reasons why we're facing so many obstacles in the homeownership arena, which is why the education piece is so important.
So when you say the education piece, tell me who you teach and how you teach them. And obviously those are the different concepts and pieces that you talk about, but who do you usually teach and what does that format look like?
So I teach financial planners, CPAs, real estate agents, and consumers. But I focus right now primarily on real estate agents because they are the ones that are going to be responsible for coming up with the solutions, talking about those solutions, casting the vision, understanding what's going on in the marketplace. Your average real estate agent today is 56 years old. So if you understand that, then you understand that the technology that they use probably isn't, really at par. So we're trying to get them better acquainted with the technology that's out there, familiar with it, help them not be so intimidated by it, help them to learn to speak the language. One of the last issues, and I forgot to mention this, that we have going on is that we really don't speak to the consumer in this consumer's language. We use all of these acronyms and terminology that confuses the consumer. Even the basic conversation that we try to have with the consumer is confusing to the consumer. And there's really not a lot of advocacy for that poor consumer to understand what's going on. And this is not just your first time home buyer market. This is your second, third, people who've been in their home that bought before. The mortgage industry has changed so much. And so I try really hard to get the agents to understand where that consumer is, the type of language that they need to use, the software that they need to use, how to cast that vision. And so we're spending a lot of time there, but we are spending a lot of time with financial planners and CPAs too, because financial planners are key to helping clients come up with ideas on how to save, to help them get their, affairs in order. As you know, Kimberly, HUD has their own agency. They talk about their HUD counseling agencies. Those also need some work. They're very basic and they speak to people like they don't have money. But there are a lot of people, believe it or not entering the home buying market right now who have money because they cannot envision what homeownership is or what's going on with homeownership. So that's the goal, is to teach the real estate agent, the consumer, the CPAs and the financial planners kind of the same material and get them all on the same page. And we teach the consumer, when we teach the consumer, they have to have a team of at least 7. That's what I teach. And I also teach that to the real estate agents as well, and financial planners, CPAs, because they can have advice. And a lot of people think you can't even seek out a financial planner until you have money. But the reality is you're never going to have money if you don't bridge that gap and come into that place and get to know those, what your options are. So it's sort of like when you're around successful people, you drive yourself to be more successful.
My mom always said, you are who you hang around.
You are who you hang around. And financially, if you want to do really well, you need to be around people who really understand the places in your financial world.
So I have a question, Gina, on this. Obviously, we talk about all those different professions and what they need to understand. But can you speak to why we need to be focused on individual home ownership in this market or in any market, and why that's an important, in my opinion, I think I have some ideas as why that's an important part of the fabric of who we are as a country. But can you speak to that and what you've seen and maybe trends, like you said, moving toward the investor market and away from the individual homeowner?
Well, it's already harder for the first-time home buyer to enter the market. Well, we've talked about that because they are paying higher rents. But one of the big things, I don't think, especially the millennials, I speak to them a lot. I spend a lot of time with them. So I feel comfortable saying that they don't really understand what homeownership can do for them. And I ask them all the time, when you retire, how are you going to live rent-free? Are you gonna invest that much money to where you can still pay the higher rent at that time that you retire? Or do you, like our parents, grandparents, like we've done, and buy that house, whether you stay in it or whether you move, build that equity position? Because a home ownership, let me give you a good example. The home that I live in was built in 1965. You want to guess how much it cost brand new in 1965? $30,000. We know the original owner. It cost $30,000. Now, people are complaining about today's rates, which I remind them are still low, by the way.
Right.
But even at 21%, if that rate had been 21% at $30,000, with taxes and insurance today, that payment would still, well, if you didn't refinance, you would have already paid it in full. But 2, that payment it would be like $700 all in. It's like $528 principal and interest with a 21% interest rate. And at the time, that payment seems really high. But this is the benefit of home ownership. You start with this payment, and in general, hopefully, and I know there's periods of time where people lose money, but as a whole, you go up in income, and that payment's still here, and it gets lower and lower. Like I moved to a 15-year mortgage a couple years ago and almost doubled my payment, and it seemed like so much, but for me, I was like, I need the discipline. I won't naturally do it, so I'm going to force myself. And now that payment, that was in 2017. Not only is that payment cheap, but it's cheaper than I could find anything out in rent.
Yeah.
And so that is the benefit of home ownership. It is having your own place and being able to do your own thing to it. But it's also adding to it's a wonderful, wonderful retirement strategy. And, what I'm concerned with now that I'm seeing a lot of multifamily going up, the developers are coming in, lots of multifamily, which is going to create a bigger rental market, which is going to make it harder for homeownership. In addition to, I've been in this, like I said, for 25 years, never seen complete subdivisions being built where brand new, that you cannot buy in. You can only rent in. And when you look at where those investors are coming from, most of them are not even in the States.
Mhm. I read an article about that, and basically the purpose of that is in your multifamily apartments and things like that, people are going to move, right? But when they have a house and they have a yard and it becomes theirs and they rent it, a lot of times people are going to stay and pay more than they would in an apartment for a really long time. So for those investors, it might be a great business plan, but as a homeowner, it's very devastating, right? To that world out there, and makes almost that ability for home ownership even a bigger gap and harder to get into. I know I want to go back to what you said earlier about teaching people and talking and all these acronyms and all these big words that nobody really understands, whether they're first-time home buyers or seasoned investors. I think that that's an issue across all industries. When we talk to our team and our associates and people that work with us, that's what we talk about very much so, is that any conversation we have, we want to have it, almost on a third grade level, not to not respect people's intelligence and where they are, but just to talk so simply so nobody can be confused and everyone can understand. So I think that that's great that that's what you're doing, and you're teaching these different affiliated professionals how to speak to average consumers and normal everyday people, because really that's the majority of our world, right? We've got our top 5 or 10%, but the rest of us, we need normal conversations so we understand, we can engage. What would you say when you talk to these professionals, and then also when you talk to the millennials, how is that received? Are people appreciative of that? Do they understand it? Do you see change happening, or is it too early to tell?
Well, who's caught on to it more than anyone are the CPAs. They're very excited about the information. Let me tell you something. CPAs have a heart for their clients most of the time. They know them very intimately. There's this like trust relationship. And a lot of times I find what I talk to the CPAs about is like, look, if especially in the self-employment space, you're going to need to ask the question, are you planning to buy a home in the next 2 to 3 years? Because it may take that long, right, to get the tax returns set up. Then I'll spend,
because the goal of a self-employed person is to not make any money, right? And if they don't make any money, they can't buy a house.
That's exactly right. And so I show the CPA some tips and tricks on different things that they can move around, or nothing fraudulent, just absolutely above par, but things that they can do to help their client mitigate their tax and be able to buy a home. But one of the big things that I speak to the CPA about is energy efficiency. Get familiar with those, make it to where your client can call you and ask you what home improvements might be best to serve them on their tax return. For example, again, I'm going to keep using me because I feel like I'm my best known target. But we put a roof on our house this year, and we ended up putting a metal roof on because it was energy efficient over a standard roof. And we don't live in an HOA, so we had the ability to do that. And it was a little bit more, but when we looked at it from the utility standpoint and the tax standpoint, it wasn't more. Mm-hmm. And so with the CPAs, it's not so much teaching them to talk on the level of the consumer, because I don't truly know what they do, but it is more, pardon me, my battery charger pulled out.
Don't go away, Gina.
Yeah, it's okay. There we go. It's magnetic. But anyway, it's just teaching them to understand what that home buyer needs from a CPA standpoint. On the financial planning, and this is the reason why I fell in love with HDI and why I found HDI. The financial planning world is so regulated that they're scared. Like they literally are scared to talk to home buyers. They're scared to bring that piece in. When I talk about bringing them in, they have to run everything by their compliance. And seeking out financial planning, I ran into HDI, and it's not that way. You talk to the everyday normal people who need you most. And that's what I love about that platform. But it's very hard on the financial planners, is they're somewhat open to learning more about it, but their whole training has been, you know, if a person has X amount of money,
This
then
is
we
what
want
we're
to
talking
talk to them.
Yeah.
And so seeking out financial planners who want to talk to that every day, start off investor to show them how to grow their money. And I feel HGI does a great job of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited every time I talk to Gina about what she's doing and her enthusiasm about it, because we met years ago, like-minded, and Kimberly and Gina were both in the mortgage business and had some conversations about that, but really realized we want to take that education out there. And a lot of times I think that in the financial planning world, it's not as much about them being scared as much as their higher ups want to keep them focused on selling what makes them money.
Maybe.
And so we want to focus on making our clients money. And I think that's the like-minded thing. We want to put our people we serve in a better place, not just our pockets in a better place.
Well, you know, I have to tell you this. So when the market crashed, and let me speak to this for a minute, because I know some of your listeners probably have this thought process of, we're going to wait. We have so many home buyers that are saying, we're waiting for the foreclosure crisis that's going to come. There's 5 different reasons why we don't believe that's going to happen. If you don't want to believe little old Gina, I want you to go out there and look. Fannie Mae just raised their loan limits another $100,000 for next year. Fannie Mae, the largest servicer of mortgage-backed securities, they do their research. So even when the market began to crash back in 2007, 2008, they weren't raising the loan limits, they were staying. But a lot of that had to do with fraud, and that is literally a whole different show. But what I was going to say to that is, we have, well, I did just lose my train of thought. Hold on one second. Oh, we've got a lot of investors coming in, buying, but we have some, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Fannie Mae, and
They raised their loan
limits.
limits, and I'm going to make the point that we do not have a market crash coming. All right. We have some leveling out. You will see some depreciation in home prices, probably about 10% in our market, but in some places we're still seeing this. If the home is listed 350 or below, which is our first time home buyer market, and it's in good shape, meaning it shows well, we're still seeing multiple offers in all markets on those. So that is something for the consumer to be aware of. If it's a really nice home, you like it, try not to go in, you know, underneath, because that market's still there for multiple offers. So it's really moving.
Well, I think that all of the information that you've shared today is amazing, right? I appreciate very much what you do. I think once we all start learning to work together, it's going to benefit everyone. So I think that that's a great mission. I'm going to open it up to everyone now for questions and comments, and let's continue this conversation through all of you guys, because I'm sure that you have some questions for Gina and want to ask her some things. So while we do that, I'll answer Laura. She asked, what is HGI? HGI is a financial services marketing company. It's where Zack and I hang our financial life, and that's who we represent out in the marketplace. But basically, we sit down with, you know, families, individuals, talk to them about their goals and dreams, where they are, where they want to be, help them put that plan together with a lot of educational conversations and a lot of financial concepts. And we don't charge for our advice or opinion, which makes it very accessible to everyone. Of course, we want you to do business with us, but if you don't, you just might hurt our feelings. No obligation. But anyway, yeah, let's open it up. So who's got some questions for us this morning? Anyone? No one?
I used to say all the time when I taught school, which was a long time ago, but no such thing as a stupid question. There's probably 5 or 6 more people that have the same one. So we've got a hand up.
Yeah, I see a hand raised. Your phone isn't named, or it's named, but I don't know that it's your name. So
good morning. This is CC. How's everybody?
hey, CC, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I have a question. I've owned the property for about 20 something years, very high interest. And since I paid over 20 something years already, it's not even worth it to refinance. because I have such a low balance, and I'd like to see what kind of options available, because the property does need a lot of work. And I just need to go about it the right way without causing me more harm financially.
You want me to speak to that, Kimberly?
Yeah, I was like, Gina, this is your show today.
Good
so.
question, Cece. So this is one of those situations whenever you're going to do any kind of work on the home, that is a measure twice, cut once situation. You really want to start with the end in mind and go backwards. So I'm going to give you some ideas on what to do to get the money, but I also want you to have a really good idea, because if you don't do that, there's overruns, it ends up costing you a lot more. It needs to definitely have a very good strategy in place. So that said, I love lines of credit right now, the adjustable lines of credit. I personally and professionally feel that we will see a little bit of a lower rate going into the first of next year. Into the year, we're averaging around 6.5% interest rate right now. And I would agree with you, if you've been in this 20-year long time, you're hacking away at principal. You don't want to touch that. But the adjustable rate allows you to take advantage of that lowering market. It's based off of prime. It's billed interest only. So again, there needs to be a strategy on how to pay. But remember, I just shared with you that I did a roof. We did a roof for our home. We did a line of credit, and we plug away at that line of credit as much as possible. Because here's the cool thing about it. You can use it again and again in the first 10 years that you have it. So if you pay it down, you can use it again, and you're billed interest only. If you still have it at the end of year 10 and you have a balance on it, it goes into a fixed rate at that point, into a 20-year amortization, or you can just move it into a fixed rate at any time if you want to. But they're inexpensive. They're not very hard to get, and they're not very expensive in closing costs. So
And I just want to add really quickly, remember that for most people, their home is one of their largest assets. So it's also important from just a sustainability of your house and making sure that everything is okay, that you keep it in working order. You take care of it and you keep it up working. And so I think it's always an individual conversation on, do you plan on staying there forever? Are you selling your house? Is it a rental? Is it your primary? What are all of these questions? But I think it's also why it's so important, like Gina said, to measure twice and cut once. Ask your questions, figure it out, look at those different scenarios. Well, what if this or what if that? And really look through that so you know that it fits your personal situation.
Also be aware there's some great financing out there for the roof. Now, we did a line of credit, but our roofer had it was a 10-year long-term thing. The interest was low. Windows have some amazing financing right now. I know if you use Train air conditioning units, they also have like a 4-year note that you can take that's really decent. So it doesn't always have to be mortgage related on what you do for those home improvements. Okay, I got you, Cece. I'll call you.
Any other questions we have before we wrap up the show for today? No? Well, Gina, I want to say thank you so much for joining us and for being our guest today. I always love our conversations. I love your insight on the industry and what's happening in the world around us. So I appreciate that very, very much, and I appreciate you being our guest.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, as we sign off, let me remind you all of our 8 tenets. Number 1, love, right? It's Thanksgiving. We just did that, and let's keep doing it. Number 2, laugh out loud. It'll keep you younger. It'll keep you healthy. Stress less. Same thing. Know what you can manage, know what you can handle, and stay focused on those things. Eat mostly plant-based. There's a lot that goes into that. Give. We're going into the giving season, and we talk to our kids about that, making their Christmas lists and all those things. Let's think about giving instead of getting. Let's think about what we can do to make other people's lives better. Sleep. Wow, Kimberly was beating me up because I Watching TV late last night. Get some sleep. Close your eyes. You'll feel better in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Move. Get up and move. And the final one, check yourself before you wreck yourself. All right, guys. Great to see all of you. We will see you next time. See you tomorrow for the rest of you, and Money Monday next time.
Thanks for joining us. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Bye.
Great session, guys. Great session. Good information. Thank you.